After each deadly mass shooting, we've come to expect two things: a push to rein in access to guns and a push back from the National Rifle Association and its supporters. In the end, nothing happens except another mass shooting. But many say Florida could be the tipping point. After 17 students and teachers were killed last week, Donald Trump has promised action, but for now, it's just listening sessions. Instead, the action has come from an unlikely source: teens, some who can't even vote yet. Since last week's shooting, they've been making their case in the media, to lawmakers, and the White House. And just last night, teen survivors from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School gathered for a CNN town hall on gun control, where they turned the tables on some people in power.
Senator Rubio, can you tell me right now that you will not accept a single donation from the NRA in the future? In the name of 17 people, you cannot ask the NRA to keep their money out of your campaign?
I think in the name of 17 people, I can pledge to you that I will support any law that will prevent a killer like this.
No, but I'm talking NRA money.
No.
And when a spokeswoman for the NRA took the stage herself, they didn't let her off the hook either.
Do you believe it should be harder to obtain these semi-automatic weapons?
Well, I think the ATF is deciding about bump stocks right now. The president ordered the DOJ to look into it.
I'm asking your opinion as a representative of the NRA.
That's what the NRA's position has been.
That grief turned passion has spread to teens throughout the U.S. with marches and school walkouts planned for the coming weeks, including here in Massachusetts. So, is Generation Z our nation's best weapon against these weapons? Joining me are Laura Gouvea. She's a Somerville High School student organizer. Laura, it's great to meet you. Thanks for being here. Sheridan Lasher is a Northeastern University student who graduated from Marjory Stoneman Douglas last year and is organizing the Boston March for Our Lives. Good to meet you, too. Matthew Reiad is a Boston Trinity Academy student who's also vice president for the Youth Conservatives of Massachusetts. Matthew, thanks so much for being here. I assume we all agree there's a problem. I assume we all agree adults have failed to fix it, regardless. We're on the same page so far.
Yes.
How convinced are you, starting with you, that teenagers are the ones who can pull this off where adults have failed so miserably, regardless of what solution you believe is the right one? Are you convinced?
I'm confident, yes.
Why?
These are the students that were there. They experienced this. They were at the shooting itself. They heard the gunshots. They know exactly how these people are feeling. They lost their friends. They lost their loved ones. I think they have the passion more than anyone right now. And I think if anyone's going to do anything, it's going to be them.
Did you know any of the students or teachers?
I didn't know anyone personally. I knew of people, obviously. It's a very large school. So.
Have you spoken to any of your friends or any of your former classmates since last week?
Yeah, my best friend is still attends there.
And how is he or she doing?
They're all just grieving in their own ways, but they're all taking action really powerfully.
You know, Matthew, you may have a different take on this. We'll talk about your agenda in a minute. But do you think people in your age group are the ones who can actually convince lawmakers to do something, regardless of what that something is?
Yeah, I really think bureaucrats in Washington have really let us down. I think their ways of legislation are inefficient. And even if they do something, whether or not I agree with it, I think that is a step in the right direction, even if it's something I completely disagree with.
You want action, meaning even if you didn't like the action, you just want them to show they're paying attention.
I think bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. are really doing a poor job of representing us.
Do you want to make it unanimous? Are people in your age group going to turn this nightmare around?
I totally think so.
Why?
Because in the coming elections, it will be us making decisions. It will be our generation that's hopefully going to have positions in government and future schools, teachers, professors. So if anyone's going to make a decision, take a step in the right direction, it's going to be us.
Can I get your reaction, all three of you, to a bunch of major moments in the last 24 to 36 hours? Let's start with the president. This is yesterday. He talked about arming teachers in classrooms. Here's President Trump.
This would only be obviously for people that are very adept at handling a gun. And it's called concealed carry, where a teacher would have a concealed gun on them. They'd go for special training.
And he followed up today, Matthew, by saying a bonus for teachers who agree to this. Is this a good idea?
I think it has the right intentions. I think that schools are somewhat vulnerable, especially big schools. These are areas with a lot of students, and if someone wants to do a mass shooting, I think schools would be one of the big targets.
You don't think teachers have enough to do?
I personally don't believe that teachers should be adequately trained, or I don't think that's part of their job description. But I do think there's a good possibility that we should be having metal detectors or police officers in the school at the front office. And not only that, we should be training students in gun safety and somehow have regular curriculum that can help students know what to do in these circumstances.
You on board with any of this?
I think that's a retroactive plan. I think it's working after the problem, and I think we need to start with what the problem is, and that's the guns itself. I don't think arming teachers is going to help anyone. They don't even know how to use the guns, and it's going to take a long time before they do. I just don't think that it's a plan that will actually efficiently work in what we need right now.
So what guns should we get rid of? Is it assault weapons you're concerned about?
Well, the assault weapons, definitely. I don't think that anyone should be able to
Should we get rid of assault weapons?
Well, I think that's a very complex issue because a lot of these assault rifles, it's a possibility that in Florida, it's a case that he got it legally.
Why should any non-law enforcement person, why do they need, even if they want to defend themselves or the family, why do they need an assault weapon?
I think that assault weapons we can't back down from the Second Amendment. And I understand that assault weapons could be used for mass shootings. But the reality stands that most mass shootings are happening with pistols and with these common guns that I just don't think that assault weapons are that much of a problem as much people think that
want to break the tie here? Assault weapons, they got to go, or are they not the problem?
I think assault weapons, especially in the hand of someone so young, that they have the capacity of having something that can do so much damage. Like a handgun, I think it's 21-18 bullets. An assault weapon is so many lives that are at risk. So I think assault weapons is just absolutely absurd, especially for a civilian.
We heard from the President of the United States. Let's hear from somebody who doesn't have a title. His name is Alfonso Calderone. He's a Florida school shooting survivor. He was talking to Don Lemon after the town hall last night on CNN. Here he is.
People need to remember that this is going to happen in small steps if it is going to happen at all. And if we want the momentum to keep going, we need to keep going with the small steps.
Laura, can you live with that? He's basically saying, I put words in his mouth. We're probably not going to get an assault weapons ban in the short run. Let's do something to make progress. Do you have to go for the whole loaf now? Or is a little bit, as Alfonso said, enough right now?
I think it's go big or go home. I think we, as students, as teenagers, maybe not being able to vote, going out and ourselves going up and making a change, I think we have to go big and really bringing attention to how big of a problem this is.
Do you agree with that?
I don't think it's a small step. I think there are many other guns that people can own, and I think getting rid of assault rifles is a small step that would make a huge difference. I think that no one should be armed with an assault rifle that could kill 17 kids in just a matter of an hour, less than an hour. I don't think that's a small step.
Well, you obviously think small steps are okay, because you said progress of any sort is good.
Yes? I have no problem with an assault rifle ban. My issue is that I just don't think this is relevant to the conversation, considering that this is about gun laws as a whole. And as a whole, we see that pistols and these normal everyday guns are taking much more lives than when people make a big deal about, AK-47, when it's just not a big threat.
Well, let's talk about an auxiliary issue that relates to this, that Marco Rubio, a senator from Florida, appeared to do a 180 on last night. Here is Senator Rubio on the issue of high-capacity magazines. Here it is.
I traditionally have not supported looking at magazine clip size. And after this and some of the details I've learned about it, I'm reconsidering that position. It may not prevent an attack. It may save lives in an attack.
NRA hates this. Absolutely. Is there an absolute no? Should they be a no on this?
Well, I think bringing up the NRA is a great topic. And I think that as a whole, we kind of bash the NRA as it's a private organization. I think
my radio co-host called it a terrorist organization today on Boston Public Radio. Do you agree with that?
I totally disagree with that. This is a private company. Let's remember that they can lobby all the congressmen. But I think the number one problem that I have with an organization that is government funded is Planned Parenthood, that is taking 1,000 million times more lives than the NRA has ever taken.
Not with government money, though, as I'm sure you know. That abortions and things are funded with not government money. Does Rubio give either of you two hope? This guy was a staunch defender of the NRA agenda. He basically said last night on the age that you can buy assault weapons, he's not for a ban, but maybe raising the age to 21. On this high-capacity thing, you're making a face like you're not there. You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Why not?
He's getting $3 million funded by the NRA. I don't think he's going to back down because some high schooler tells him something, I don't think he's going to stop what he believes in because he's getting all this money.
So you think he just said what he needed to say last night to get through the hour-long thing? You're buying that same deal?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that he wasn't able to say, no, I will not accept money from the NRA in front of someone who experienced something so horrible as a mass school shooting, I don't think his opinion is going anywhere.
You know, if I made each of you, if I had the power, the czarina or czar of gun violence in this country, and said you're allowed to do one thing. You don't need congressional approval. You don't need presidential approval. You make the decision. What's the one most important thing you think could change this quickly if you can?
Honestly, I would ban assault weapons. I would absolutely ban assault weapons. And if that wasn't my one thing would absolutely be make it really difficult for someone to obtain a gun, especially if someone, family or in the community, said, I honestly think this person is not of the stature to obtain this weapon.
How about it, Sharon? What would you do? What's top of your list?
If I could, I would ban all guns, but that's not realistic. So I'll start with banning all assault rifles and all assault weapons.
What's your one step?
I've said this repeatedly. I wish I lived in a world where we didn't have to carry guns. But the number one thing I would do is assure that if a righteous, law-abiding citizen would like to obtain any gun they want, and they have a clean record, and I could see in the future and saw that they would not commit atrocities, I would make sure that you have the possibility to do that.
Okay, before we go, I said at the end, one of the problems is the grown-ups in Washington have no ability to compromise on anything these days. If I put you three in a room, and you do have different worldviews, could you craft a compromise that the three of you think, based on these 10 minutes, that you think are acceptable, or is there too wide a divide between the Matthews of the world and the Sheridans and Lauras of the world? Quickly, could you craft a compromise?
I think we could craft a compromise to make small steps.
You think so too?
I agree.
And you think so too?
Think so.
I wish I could lock in a room right now if that's the case. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you, Sheridan, too. Matthew, thanks
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having me.
all three of you.